Drew Holmen, welcome to the Single Track Podcast.
Finn, thanks for having me. And happy we're almost to Statesmas week.
Yeah,
So
this is like, what, 7 days out?
we're 7 days out. So
Cool.
the work is done, the hay's in the barn. Now's the fun part. We get to go and hang out with the best community in the world.
Truly. One thing I want to talk about before Western States, I was listening to your episode with Debo a couple days ago in prep for this, and
Yeah.
I'm fascinated that in a former life you were a competitive ultimate frisbee player. And the reason I bring that up is because I have a little bit of experience myself in that world, and I think you'd agree, like ultra running, it's a pretty powerful community. It's a pretty all-encompassing lifestyle. Can you talk about that experience and maybe why I didn't stick with it? Because it's a pretty compelling life.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head in terms of why I fell in love with ultimate frisbee. So, I grew up. Sport was always a huge part of my life. I played hockey from basically age 3 through high school. I played baseball similarly, and I got into ultimate because I showed up at Carleton College, tiny little liberal arts school in southern Minnesota that has an absurd obsession with the sport of ultimate frisbee. And Carleton has 2,000 kids, and there are 6 formal ultimate frisbee teams. And Carleton, on any given year, can win Division I and Division III titles across those teams. And so for me, I showed up, I was, kind of in search of what was the next, how was I going to define myself as an athlete after high school sports. I was, went to club hockey once or twice and realized that, playing high school hockey in Minnesota is very, very competitive, and it's a lifestyle. And I was spending 9 months a year playing it. And so when I got to Carleton, I was pretty burned out by that. And I just stumbled into this incredibly inclusive, fun community that also cared a lot about doing things well. And so, played frisbee through college. I was on the team that at the time was called Gods of Plastic. We won a
I love
D3
that.
national title in 2012, and then we went to nationals each year. And to be honest, I stopped playing Finn because I've never been so injured in my life playing ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
The combination of cleats and changing directions constantly, my hamstrings were torn every other season, just ankles all over the place. Which is funny that I chose alt running, but
Right.
that was the next post pulse of ultimate frisbee.
If I started playing again, I'd probably tear both ACLs on the second day.
I think about now if I tried to change directions quickly, and my partner Sasha and I joke a lot about how ultra running kind of just slowly pounds any athleticism that you have out of you. Because if I jumped or changed directions, I'm sure I would tear everything.
Right. One more thing. Can you talk about coming up in the SFRC scene? Because that has been a powerhouse in terms of churning out great ultra runners, and I'm curious how that's contributed to your success.
Yeah. I owe a lot of my love for this sport and the success that I've had to the SFRC community. I met Patty O'Leary, acclaimed scientist, Irish ultra runner, all around great human. He'll be pacing me again this year at States.
That's awesome.
But I met Patty, and he, convinced me to go to SFRC about a year after I'd really started running more seriously. I think one, you're in Marin, you're running on the most beautiful trails in the world. And then 2, they just had an incredible, group run effect. And so it was the first time where I was able to, it was my first exposure to the ultra running community. And then when you have folks in a community who are traveling all over the world and competing at the highest level with Patty and Alex Varner and Dylan Bowman, and it just is such it allows you to dream. and it allows you to see that, those opportunities are possible. And so, I really, respect Jorge Maravilla and Brett Rivers, who started the SFRC store and really built that community into what it is today. And then, I've realized that coming out of SFRC, that's been an important part of my running journey, and it's been a constant thread through, which is group running has an incredible impact on being able to evolve and adapt as a runner. And so now I'm in Boulder, and I've been lucky enough to work with David Roche for many years, and he and I are now good friends, and we run together frequently, and we've got a great crew here. Matt Daniels and Adam Mary and Seth Ruling. Seth just won Maxi race in
Yes.
France and was so psyched that, he's and will be one of the best in the world. And it's just like so important to me to have that as part of my running journey. So but just another plug for group run.
Of course.
A great way to build community and build also just, running adaptation.
We'll have to go long form at some point, because SFRC to me, it's like the perfect case study in how a retail store can, or how like a running store can transcend retail and build community and just go beyond the norm. Transitioning to Western States here, you got a lot out of yourself last year. You had a fantastic race, but you said it yourself, you more than went to the well to get it done. And as somebody that's fascinated by the psychology of the sport, and knowing what it took to do that, how do you think about doing that all over again this year? Because I'm guessing, you're competitive, you care about like racing. Like, how do you get yourself ready to go to the well again like that?
Finn, there's something beautiful about your first 100 miler. You don't quite realize what it takes. And so, I went to the well last year, but I think also going into this year and how I've been able to, get to a mental space where I feel really excited to race next Saturday, is that, with what it took, there was also so many learnings from that I'm able to apply to this race. And what I'm trying to really just return to over and over is just embracing that unknown. This is, yes, I'm going back to Western States, but I'm not going back to, it's not the same race.
Yeah.
You're not running the race again. You're running a completely different race, a completely different journey and story. And so, I'm excited for the pain. That's part of it. Also, I think, you probably noted this in listening to my podcast with Dylan, is I'm a, super competitive person, and I love the community and everything about that. But then I also just, that energy of when you get on the start line, that's pretty fun too. And so, there's going to be all sorts of different factors that I'm not too worried about the experiences that I had last year, because it's all going to wash away. It's just running, and you can't possibly not just fall in love with what you're doing when you're at Western States. So
talk a bit about maybe anything you've done differently in training this time around, knowing what you know about the course and how you race at that distance, stuff like that.
Yeah. To be honest, Finn, we're not trying to change too many things, because, I think as ultra runners, we get into this mindset of oh man, there's so many moments that I could have done this better or this better. And then when you take a step back, it's Drew, you still took third at Western States. Don't change too much, and so obviously I went deeper than I would have wanted to last year. Yeah. And there was some, folks can go back and listen to my podcast with Debo, but there was some damage that happened in that race. In terms of muscle breakdown that we were trying to avoid. And so I think the biggest difference this year is there was just a bigger block of more vert and more time on my feet to really just try to harden up the quads and get ready for the descending that is in States. But a lot of it is just about getting to that start line healthy. getting to that start line, just incredibly excited for the unknown that is ahead. And then there's 18 ways to fry an egg in terms of, the training that we all need to be successful. And, I was, well, this is kind of a tangent, but I was running with Tyler at States camp a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we were just noting that everyone gets to States in the best shape of their life. And you just have to acknowledge that. And everyone's going to do it in their own way. And so you can't look around too much, and you just have to, focus on what works for each of us. And so that's what we've tried to do. And David is an incredible partner. He and Megan are, I just have so much respect for what they do in the ultra community. And I put a lot of faith in them when it comes to putting together a good plan.
Well, you look good. Do you feel rested and ready to go for this race?
I do. Yeah. I've had a little bit of sickness the last couple of weeks, which is, the way of the world is you get in the best shape of your life and then you catch a cold. But I think I'm going to be in really good shape come next Saturday, and just excited to see what happens.
Awesome. Well, you have quickly become one of my favorite athletes to follow at races like this. I think I speak for a lot of folks when I say we're excited to follow the front of the race this year, because I'm guessing you're going to be mixing it up there. Before we go, there are a bunch of gearheads out there, and they're curious about what you're wearing on race day from head to toe. So can you give us some insight into the shoes, the pack, stuff like that?
Yep. So from a shoe standpoint, I will be in a pair of Peg Trails, the Peg Trail 4 that just came out. It's a great kind of all-around shoe that I've been loving. Obviously, I'm sponsored by Nike, and so I'm lucky enough to be able to wear a bunch of great shoes. There's another shoe that might come into play. I don't know if I can speak to it publicly, but it's pretty exciting. It's going to be a fun shoe to wear at States.
It may or may not be carbon plated.
It may or may not have some good foam and some plates involved. I'm going to wear the Nike shoes, and then I'm a half-tight guy, so I'll be wearing half-tights. And then, white tank, white T-shirt, ice bandana, doing all the cooling strategies. There'll be a hat, and just trying to stay cool, because that's the name of the game. So ice everywhere, all the time, rivers, streams, staying cool.
Awesome. Well, Drew, thanks again. Thanks for giving us some of your time, helping us bide our time before Western States begins. We'll make sure to link to all of your socials in the show notes. And is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we go?
No, I just think, Finn, thank you for everything that you do. This is the beauty of this sport, and I'm just excited to be out in Olympic Valley with the community, and it'll be a journey, and I'm excited to see folks at Forest Hill, and I just love everything about the sport. So it's a fun time of year.
I appreciate you, brother, and same to you. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Finn. Talk soon.